Hello, you're listening to A Conversation With, the podcast where each week I'm joined by a different guest and we have a conversation on a topic of their choice. My name is Jason, and joining me this week it is the founder of Easy English, coming all the way from Italy at the moment. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Olga Pak. I live in Italy and I teach English. However, I'm not English. I'm actually from Russia, was born in St. Petersburg, and only later I've moved to Italy to teach English. So currently I'm an English teacher.
Wonderful. So you've been in Italy for quite a while, and anyone who's listened to this podcast for a while will know that I've been in Italy. I was in Italy, I should say, for quite a while as well. Did our paths cross while we were there?
Absolutely, yes. We actually worked together.
Yeah, good times, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He says
Indeed.
Comfortably from England.
Yeah, after running away. No.
Yeah, so that was nice. We worked together for a couple of years, I suppose.
Couple of years.
Yeah. And
I think it was nice. I think that actually the times we shared, we worked at British institutes in near Venice, and an English school there, and I thought it was like the best time that I actually spent there, because I spent 4 years in that school, and for me the years that we actually shared together were the best ones.
Well, clearly, because once I left, everybody else that was good left as well. It was enjoyable, but you see, you ran away as well. I did like that you wanted to say the name of the, dare I say, city, small town that we actually worked in, and you just decided nobody listening to this will know where that is, and said Venice.
Exactly. Yeah, of course.
Which is
Shall
true.
we mention it anyway?
Yeah. San Donà di Piave, if anybody's got Google Maps, and you'll see it. It is genuinely near Venice, don't worry.
The metropolitan city of San Donà di Piave.
I didn't even live in San Donà, I lived in Musile, but anyway.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I had to cross a bridge every morning. But we digress, because as much as we love teaching English, and as much as English teaching was the spark that created this podcast, you actually have a different topic for us today, I believe.
Yeah. Today I'm going to share my passion, one of my biggest passions, that is photography.
This is going to be very interesting to hear about. So, should we reveal that you recently actually had some success with photography? Is that the right word?
Well, I wouldn't really define it as success. It's just that for me, it's a personal success, because I've started taking pictures about 4 years ago now. And so it's a recent passion, but in 4 years' time, I've actually managed to have my own exhibition just recently. So nothing major really, because it's just like the photography club I've joined recently decided to put up some pictures on a project I've done. So, but for me, obviously, it's something really, really nice, because you see, when you just start taking really horrible pictures and then you work your way up to just have a small exhibition, I think that's just great. So,
well, you're on a podcast now, so that is the definition of personal success, because we record it ourselves, we put it up ourselves, we mostly listen to it ourselves. So you should be proud of your achievements in the photography world, because it is every podcaster's dream to have somebody else put our stuff up and not just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess.
So you're saying it's a recent passion. So what kind of triggered this for you then? What is it about photography that you...
Really, really, really funny story. There's like a whole side story to it. So basically, a couple of years ago, like 4 years ago, I went to Paris on a very brief holiday, and I went there with only one thing in mind. I really wanted to see some paintings by a really famous Russian painter. His name is Pavel Filonov. Maybe if somebody knows him, or maybe if they want to look him up, he's actually a great painter. I knew that these really, really interesting paintings were in Centre Pompidou, which is like a really famous museum in Paris. And well, I also need to mention that he was actually from St. Petersburg, my hometown, and so was a surrealist painter, and so I really wanted to see those paintings. And so I booked myself a flight, got in Paris, went to Centre Pompidou, which is an amazing museum, by the way. So if somebody happens to be in Paris, I definitely recommend that museum, like to visit that museum, because it's fantastic. So I was all thrilled and happy walking around, the admiring all the different modern art that is disposed in Centre Pompidou. And so once I was like, inspired, like filled with inspiration and all happy, I was like, okay, now is the right time to just see the paintings I came here for. So I asked the lady that was like working on one of the floors I was visiting where I could find the paintings, and she obviously didn't speak any English, so she was like, I asked her like, where can I find Filonov? And she was like, no. I was like, what do you mean no? No. And so I, with horror, actually discovered that the floor where the paintings were actually exhibited was being renovated, and the paintings weren't there. So I've actually flown all the way to Paris for nothing.
That's,
so just
if we have any listeners from Paris, I'm so sorry that Olga said that. I've flown all the way to Paris for nothing. There's nothing else in that city that interests me apart from a Russian painting.
No, but just think about it. That like
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
So
don't worry, we don't have any listeners in Paris. They don't want to learn English.
Anyway, I was like, I felt, when something really, really bad happens to you and you're like kind of really upset, or where you like hoping for something and then it doesn't happen, so you got really, really upset. That's what I was like, crushed, literally. I was like, oh my god, what? So but I'm telling all this because then later on, actually, there was an exhibition in the same Centre Pompidou dedicated to a really, really famous street photographer. His name is Henri Cartier-Bresson, and I'm sure that those people who are actually passionate about photography obviously know who I'm talking about. And well, before seeing this exhibition, I actually knew nothing about photography. I wasn't really a big fan, but after seeing that exhibition, I mean, I was just thrilled. Like, wow, this is fantastic. This is amazing. Shall I give you a little bit of background information on this photographer?
You can.
Would you like to hear that?
I'm still following this through. So we went to Paris, because we wanted to see a Russian painting. So I'm already a little bit, this shouldn't surprise me coming from you, Olga. But so we go to Paris to see a Russian painting. The floor's closed. We've gone to so is it a French photographer, the exhibit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Good. I'm following so far. So give us a bit of background then on this.
So Henri Cartier-Bresson is really, really famous because he basically is the father of street photography. Street photography is the kind of photography that I'm passionate about. Basically, it mainly has to do obviously with just pictures taken on the streets of maybe a big city or even a minor city. And it's all about just capturing a moment in the life of somebody, or like a moment of life in general, that specific moment. So that's what it's all about. And obviously this French photographer in particular is really, really famous for having captured probably the best street shots out there. But you see, I didn't know anything about him before seeing this exhibition. So once I've seen his pictures, I was like, whoa, this is amazing, because this guy traveled pretty much all over the world, and he lived in the 40s and 50s, and he was amongst everything else also the founder of this really famous photography agency that's called Magnum. And it was just amazing to see how a person would travel all over the world and take all these amazing pictures and really capturing the moments of daily life and daily people's lives. That's pretty much it. And so from there on, I decided, I would love to take pictures myself, because I love traveling. I love observing the world around me. So why not taking pictures? And that's where it all started, basically.
Yeah.
So after coming back from Paris, I bought myself a camera and started.
So what camera did you buy? Because anyone who is listening who's a photography, I don't know what to call them, photography nut, probably not very kind, but passionate about photography, there we go. Anybody who's passionate about photography, they'll probably know. So what kind of camera do you use?
Well, my first camera was actually a Pentax DSLR camera. I started off with that, and then I later on discovered that a DSLR camera is probably not the best idea for a street photographer because it's quite heavy. And so because when you actually take street photography, when you do street photography, you need a light camera to move around quickly and easily, and also because a DSLR camera is quite big, so people kind of spot you taking pictures of them, and that's really not really nice. I mean, you don't really ask for permission when you take those shots. So
you went into a shop and you said, what I really need is a camera where I can take pictures of people, but they don't know that I'm taking pictures of them.
That's pretty much it. No, actually, I kind of got in touch with different photographers who were, passionate about street photography as well. So we kind of discussed it through, and they was like, no, I use this kind of camera. So currently I'm using an Olympus mirrorless camera, which is a smaller camera, and quite a light camera that you can easily kind of carry around with you. Yeah, and I guess that like a couple of months ago, I also started a course on darkroom. So I actually really want to get rid of my digital camera, and my next step will be to go into taking pictures with a film camera.
Do they still sell film for cameras? It seems.
Actually, there's like a whole world out there. Like people, there are a lot of photographers that actually take pictures with film camera. I know it sounds really weird, but it's a different, like digital photography and film photography are two completely different worlds. There is like they're completely different.
Yeah, I remember having, like a camera where you take a picture and then have to wind, the film each time, and then when you finished the roll of film, having to wind back the whole thing. I am old enough to remember that. So all you kids listening that didn't know that cameras were something separate from a mobile phone, yeah, they were.
I'd say that like somebody who's a photography geek would probably understand what I'm talking about, but I guess it's really difficult to convey it to. I mean, I understand the point. Like, it's easier to obviously like get the camera, get your picture, immediately see how it looks like. But trust me, it's when you actually develop a picture in a dark room, there is like a magic that happens in front of your eyes because you've got like a picture comparing in front of you. It's just like literally, it's just like magic, and there is just a different vibe to it.
So, Olga, I'm picturing you in a dark room, developing your film from your camera that you've requested. Make sure nobody knows that I'm taking a picture.
Oh my god, that sounds really shady, doesn't it?
You're Russian. Are you a spy?
KGB.
Yeah, it's finally making sense. It's all clicking into place.
It makes sense, yeah. Yeah.
So you came back, so I derailed your story.
And because I feel guilty, I need to reveal all of this on a podcast, obviously.
Don't worry. Not even the KGB are listening to this. Even they can't be bothered. There's just one poor Russian guy. They're going, you have to listen to this podcast. Oh, not again. So you came back, you bought your camera, you started, you weren't too happy because it was a bit too heavy. You changed the camera. And so then you joined this course. What happened next? So this is an interesting story.
It's I'm just telling you the highlight points, but actually there was like a lot of things happened in between, obviously, because it took me quite a while to understand what kind of photography I liked exactly. It took me quite a long time also to figure out how to take pictures properly, because that's what like the main thing. It's like when you start taking pictures, they're going to be rubbish. Like there's no, like if you look back at the pictures, the first pictures you took, they really look rubbish. So one of the first, like I guess the first year I've started was just all about just experimenting a lot and just taking as many pictures as I could, just to learn how to do it properly and kind of develop your own style, I guess, and just understand what you really want to do. Because when you speak about street photography, you see there are different type of things. Like you could take portraits, you could just take pictures of everyday life scenes, or you could have like taking pictures of only of animals on the streets, or I don't know, just different cities, different elements in a city. So you kind of experiment with a lot of things. I kind of ultimately came to the conclusion that I really, really like taking pictures of people in the streets, just to sort of get the vibe of that moment. And that kind of slowly took me to having to deal with reportage photography, which is a different kind of photography where you really want to tell a story about someone's lives, and through pictures, through images. And so let's say I've recently had an exhibition. The main theme was adoption. So I told the story of this little girl that was adopted in Chile by Italian parents, and I actually went to their house, and they told me their whole story on how difficult it was to adopt the girl, and it took them 2 years to sort out all the documentation and everything. And then telling this whole story through images wasn't an easy task, because obviously I knew all the elements of the story, but then putting it all in images was quite a hard task. And so that's like for me, it's like the highest kind of peak. I don't even know how to call it. Like the latest achievement I had.
Yeah, it sounds. I mean, it's interesting as well, is it? Because you're trying to tell somebody else's story through images, kind of even after the fact, if that makes sense, because it's happened now. It's not like you were there following them. Like it's not like a documentary. I was with them also. It's also so. Here we go on a rant. Get my soapbox out. It's so kind of counter modern culture that we step back and take pictures of other people and what they're doing and because now everything is a selfie. It's like an incredible image, and look, here I am in front of it. An incredible event, and here I am in front of it. It's sort of always putting yourself in the story. Yeah. So to step back and tell somebody else's story in a completely visual manner, I imagine it is challenging, because quite often we need the words to give context, to give understanding, and doing it all visually. I can understand that would be very challenging. So well done.
Thanks.
Was it a success? You were happy with the final project, I should say?
I'm happy about the project. I'm happy I've done it. I'm happy I've had the experience. Now, obviously, once you've done something, then for me, it's already like past and over. And I've learned a lot from that experience, but I'd really love to improve and, do maybe other projects to just work on the little things that I found difficult during that project. So the nice thing about photography for me is that it's non-stop process. Like you constantly are actually chasing something you want to improve or learn, and you find new things you want to work on. So ultimately for me, that's what I really, really love about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so another guest on here mentioned a podcast that I listened to as well, that was kind of one of the motivations behind making this. It's a podcast called Just Make the Thing, and it goes a lot about this kind of creative drive, and it's Claire Tonti is the host, and she's interviewed a lot of creatives. And kind of one of the common thing is this drive to constantly be wanting to put something out and wanting to make something. And it's interesting what they say. The thing that really pushed me into doing this one was this concept of it doesn't need to be perfect, because generally if we try to make something perfect, we just keep delaying and we never put it out there. So I think it's good to like sort of say, well, I've done this project, I've put it out there. Was it perfect? No. There are things I can learn from it, and now I'm on to the next thing. But I think that's good. It's a good outlet for that creative drive that it seems many people have, if not all people.
Yeah.
So have you got a new project in mind?
Yeah. And this is something I really, really treasure and really hope to do. Recently Italy has experienced a huge flood of immigrants coming basically on a daily basis, and there are a lot of problems, a lot of things in society that are changing here in Italy. And then there are all these people that mainly are, they're coming from Africa, they come from poorer countries, and they come from horrible experiences. And you can just, you can see them walking around, and I can see that, people they're very suspicious, and what I'd like to do is to get closer to their world, just understand what they do on a daily basis, and just understand what's really happening, because I feel that there's a lot of ignorance at the moment, and fear and everything. And the fear comes out of ignorance, really. Just people have no clue on what's going on and who these people are and what they're doing, and that leads itself to all sorts of other problems. So my hope is to get in touch with that world and just understand a little bit more about it, and then just again try to tell it through photography, because I feel that I've actually had the chance to speak with some people that work in this field, mainly volunteers, and they were saying like, oh, we're trying to involve people, that have no idea on what's going on at the moment, and we organize all these nice concerts and all these events. But I just feel that, most of the times, like, only the people who are already in that world would actually join those events, whereas a photography exhibition, anybody can join it really, and everybody can join it, and even people that, maybe don't feel like going to an event for refugees, let's say, they would probably, spend their, Sunday afternoon just going to a photography exhibition. So I would like to inform people about what's really happening and who these people are and their dreams and their hopes, and just to kind of draw them closer to Italians, I'd say, or whoever is uncomfortable with what's happening at the moment. So to kind of spread the word, I don't know. Yeah, no, that's like kind of like the main idea, and we'll see what comes out of it.
I think you might be onto something there, because when I was living in Italy, I had a lot of contact with the refugees there. Particularly the ones that had moved in when we were living in San Donato, that they'd kind of gone to some of the beach towns that were empty in the winter, that they'd sort of repurposed. So I spent a lot of time with them. I never went to a photography exhibit, so definitely you're right that the kind of people going to one are probably not the people going to the other. So it's a good idea. It's a good way to kind of get sort of that into the public mind in a, what I suppose they would consider a more sophisticated, refined medium. This is the kind of thing they're interested in, and then it sort of brings that reality to them a little bit undercover, almost like maybe they're not quite expecting that. And then it could be interesting to, you have to keep us informed on the results of this project.
I will.
And I'm going to go back to something you said earlier, because I like to ask the hard questions, Olga. That's it's my MO. I'm getting known for this. So you've told us the photography you like. You said, so you investigated different forms of photography. You settled on this one. This is what you really found worked for you, what you liked. So my question is, was there a kind of photography that you just don't like?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. You just earlier mentioned this selfishness that is around us, where people, the selfie and everything, like everybody, like they have to be on the front cover. They have to be there. They have to be in front of the camera rather than just showing what is around us without being there constantly. So there is a kind of photography at the moment that is like especially famous on all the social media. Yeah, you might have like an amazing landscape, and then you might have like this human figure who would be like the center of attention on that picture. So you wouldn't even pay attention to the actual environment around the human figure. You would be only focused on the human figure. And so it's kind of like a very popular kind of photography at the moment, where the photographer himself, he would put himself on the spot, and he would find this really, amazing locations, but then ultimately it would be all about the human figure in the picture. I don't know if I maybe dislike it because it's like some kind of mainstream photography, or I don't really know. But that's probably the kind of photography I don't really, really like, because it just seems that, it seems to me that it's like more a pleasure for the eye, but there is nothing really behind that picture. So it's...
Yeah, it's a little bit more, instead of sort of saying, oh, look at this beautiful landscape, it's like, well, look at this beautiful landscape that I'm at. And, or look at this incredible building, or look at this incredible thing that I've been in front of. It's really, don't forget that I was here. Like, I took this picture.
Exactly.
I hate, so I'm short, so I've got small arms. So selfies aren't my friend anyway. But, I avoid pictures as much as possible, to the point that a friend of mine sent me a message the other day because he'd seen some pictures of my family at the beach, and he was like, oh, I saw you guys had a good time on the at the beach. Shame we weren't there. And I just told him, hey, look carefully at those pictures. I'm not in them. I was working. I wasn't at the beach. Oh, and he was just convinced I'd been avoiding the camera.
Okay.
I assumed you were there. You were just not getting in the pictures. No. My family went to the beach. I went to work, so they could afford to go to the beach. Yeah, I'm all heart. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not a big selfie guy. I think the only selfies of me always have my son in them as well. Like it's more just because that's the way he likes to take pictures. He's that vain.
Oh yeah, well he's allowed to be vain.
Yeah. Oh, you'd be surprised to see him now, because you obviously met him as a newborn baby, and now he's a non-stop talking 4, almost 5-year-old.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, life has changed. So, going back to our topic, we've derailed as always. One of the signature movements of this podcast. So going back to photography, so we talked a little bit about this exhibition. So I'd be interested to know about the course that you did. Sort of what are they teaching you? Because let's say it's so easy for someone to think it's photography. You take the camera, you point it at the thing you want to take a picture of, you click, and that's it. But
that's what I thought at the beginning when I started, but it's not even close to that. I mean, you really, I'm still learning, like after 4 years and after this, after all of this, I'm still learning how to take proper pictures, because it's all about, learning how to use your lens properly, learning how to use the, just all the little technical things, technical details that you need to learn about, and you really need to master them as well. And I'm still working on it. So what they teach you basically is to work on the lights, work on how to have the right exposition of the lens, and how to get the timings right, how to have like a neat, clear picture. So that's what happens. And then were you actually asking about the darkroom course I'm taking, or just
the courses course? In general? But let's hear about the darkroom. Why not?
Well, darkroom is an amazing. I've decided to do this course because, as I said before, I really want to start taking pictures with a film camera, and it's an amazing experience. And so what they teach you there is to develop film, and that involves using a lot of chemicals, of course, and after that also to print your own pictures. So again, that involves using different kind of chemicals. So it's to me, it's just pure magic, really. So how to work with the light, how to edit your picture. So basically, when you edit the picture, you know how now pictures are all edited on through Photoshop and everything, and that is in the darkroom. You actually do the manual stuff you'd be doing on Photoshop. There's like a manual Photoshop.
Wow. I'm just trying to picture a manual Photoshop in my mind. To be honest, I'm not. All I know about Photoshop is that you can make your waist look slimmer and at the same time distort the door frame that you're standing in front of. That's sort of my knowledge of Facebook. That's
exactly what you can do manually. So you'd have all these little tools. Actually the tools that you'd have on Photoshop, you actually have them like in real life. So you'd have all those, cuts and pastes and all these tools that you actually use, the brush and everything that you use on Photoshop on your computer. You'd have the actual tool in your hands and actually work on the picture manually.
I'm surprised by this, but at the same time, I don't know why I'm surprised by this. Like, does that make sense? Like, I'm thinking, oh, really? They can edit photos that way? That's amazing. That's really interesting. But yeah, of course they can, because, magazines have been around for years, long before we were doing everything digitally. And the problems that people complain about today about, unrealistic body images and this isn't what people really look like and there's no imperfections, they're not really new problems. They've always been like that. And it's always been the same issue, really, that they're unrealistic because they are not realistic. They are.
Exactly.
So,
but I say, to me, what is really magical about this is that you can, when you work on a picture, when you develop the picture, is where the creative part comes in, because you'd be working on the shadows, the light, that make it darker, make it lighter, and so you'd be really working also on the creative side of a picture. So you might not you might have taken a plain picture, or you might have sort of taken a really good picture, and you can actually also put even more kind of highlight maybe a detail you wanted to, and then you didn't manage while you were taking the picture. There's a lot of creativity that comes in once you're in the dark room, and that's the part I find amazing.
Yeah, to be honest, that's probably, of all our conversations, the thing that surprised me the most.
Really?
There's probably a number of photography aficionados sitting at home listening to this, or driving their car listening to this, thinking he is the most ignorant person I've ever met. How did he not know all of this? It is interesting, and as I said, it shouldn't surprise me. I mean, like, still photography and film are not worlds apart, and I know that for years and years they've been manipulating film for movies and TV shows, so of course they do it on photos as well. But yeah, it makes me wonder how you feel then about how kind of quick and easy it is to do it. Like, now somebody just snaps a picture on their iPhone and, I'll add this filter and I'll do this and I'll do that. And do you feel that somehow takes away the art of doing these things?
It does, and I can even tell you this. I remember experimenting and saying, okay, so I'll just take one of the worst pictures I've taken, so a plain picture that I really don't like, and let's see if I actually try to manipulate it a little bit with one of those, Photoshop programs or whatever. Can I make it actually a really, really good picture? And it turned out that I could, but that took away the whole process of photography itself. That means that any picture, even like a really, really bad picture, can actually become visually a nice picture, which doesn't mean it ultimately will be a good picture, but it visually can be appealing, which is like a total different thing from actually a good picture. Because I think, like, if you're a real photographer, if you should be able to take a good picture from the beginning. And then after that, you can improve it a little bit, enhance it a little bit, but then ultimately the original picture should be good, should be already good. And that's the whole difference between a really good photographer and not, because anyone literally can, have fantastic pictures, using filters and whatever.
Yeah, it's just, it always makes me laugh when there's this like hashtag no filter. It's like the fact that we're at a point where we need to tell people, like, I actually took this picture and I didn't add a filter, because otherwise everyone just automatically assumes you did.
Yeah,
I find a bit. I suppose I liken it a little bit, I suppose, to like going to the cinema or going to the theater, and the difference of being like, well, this is live. Like, if they make a mistake, no one's shouting cut, let's do it again, do another take. Like, it's a completely different feeling, if you know what I mean. I like going to the cinema, but I can't afford to go to the theatre very much. But when I've been, it's always that little bit more special, because it's that immersive, well, like, anything could happen. This person could slip, fall, break their leg. There's no way you can conceal that. Like, it's all there in the moment. I think it's a similar thing, isn't it? Like, here's a picture capturing this moment in time, and now here's a picture that sort of captured this moment in time, but it wasn't quite as I expected. So what I've done is, even now there's like the feature on the phones, isn't there, where they can kind of capture the moment just before and just after a picture.
Yeah.
So it's like, you kind of missed what you were trying to get, but don't worry, we've got your back. We've
got your back.
we got it for you. I suppose there's that side of you that's like, well, it's eliminating any kind of skill that's involved, but at the same time, it is making it more accessible for the vast majority of people.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I guess the skills would actually come in, because you really need to stand out. And I guess like that's where you kind of understand that you have to work on your skills and become a good photographer, and learn how to capture a moment rather than doing post-production and kind of work on the picture afterwards. I mean, every photographer will probably do something after and, readjust the picture a little bit. But a real true photographer would actually be able to capture the moment, and that's would be his biggest skill. And that's what, like, not everybody has that skill.
So I have another question for you now, completely changing tacks here.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on camera phones, I shouldn't say camera phones because now every phone has a camera. What is your opinion on every phone having a camera? How do you feel about that? Because I have strong opinions.
You think it's annoying? Honestly, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. It's just because you automatically assume that everybody can become a photographer having a camera, and maybe he's taking pictures all the time of everything that he or she does. I guess it really depends on what you do. So no, I don't really have a problem with that. And I guess that's like if I have to say it through a photographer's perspective, is like it doesn't really matter what kind of tool you use as long as you are really good at what you do. What's your problem with that anyway?
Oh, my problem is just that every moment somebody has a camera on them, and so you can't do anything embarrassing now and get away with it. It makes you kind of scared to eat sometimes. Like, you're just sort of sitting there thinking, oh, I'm making a real mess here, and everybody sitting around me has access to a camera. It's just, yeah, but then I suppose it's just the kind of oversaturation. Like, everything is photographed now, just everything.
Yeah.
And and then you've got places like Instagram, ACW Pod on Instagram, if anybody's interested. So I use Instagram, of course, as do everyone, but I like, even on my personal one, it's very rarely do I put a pic. I need to like be at an event, like something has to have happened. I'm like, I should probably take a picture of this. They're usually just really odd things that I've seen. Like I was,
there you go.
Well,
you're the first.
Yeah, well, I was walking through the centre of Bath. Bath. As I've said before on the podcast, I don't belong here. I'm not from here originally. It's too posh for me. I can't really blend in. But I was walking through the very centre. It was early in the morning. Everything is closed. And there's a building society, and they've got like all kind of, on every desk there's an iPad, and you can kind of go in and do your online banking and all of this sort of stuff. It's closed, and inside the bank, on an iPad, is a pigeon.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And so I grabbed my phone, which had a camera, so I'm a hypocrite. And I took a picture of that. Like, that's the kind of thing I'm putting on Instagram. Just weird things that I see. And occasionally my family. But it's just, you go on other people's and it's like, this is what I had for breakfast, and this is what I had for lunch, and this is what I had for dinner, and this was the coffee I drank, and this was me walking to work, and this was me sitting at my desk. And I'm just thinking, do I need all of those pictures?
I see what you mean. I guess they're like two kind of separate trends at the moment. It just seems to me that like there's mainstream photography done by literally everyone, and then there is, I'll just call it like, this is not exactly what I mean, but there's like true photography, which in a way has its own path and its own sort of story. And I guess that they're just two separate things to me. I don't know if you get it. Yeah, no,
I mean, it's like anyone can grab a camera and make a video, but it's not a film. It's not being released internationally. Anybody can grab a microphone and record a podcast. It doesn't mean it's any good. As we demonstrate on a weekly basis here at A Conversation with Pod.
Well, I've got a question for you as well now.
Okay. In that case, hold on then. Let me stop you there. We'll do it now. Yeah. So usually about this point, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a bit later. It's a very loose system we have here. But I like to hand over to my guest, and we have them ask the questions. So I'm going to pass it over to you. We're still on the topic of photography, but go ahead. What questions do you have for me?
Yeah, like my question is, like, so apart from taking weird pictures of pigeons sitting on iPads, What has your experience been so far with photography?
I actually got into photography at a very early age, and then kind of got out of it. Just not actively, just sort of got busy and dropped it. But I remember like my first camera that was just a real kind of cheap, old. Not even old. I mean, it was new, but it was just kind of a cheap camera, nothing special. Really, just kind of point and click, manual wind for the film. Really, a poor man's camera, poor child's camera. And I took it to a wedding that we'd been invited to. I think my sister was a bridesmaid at this wedding, and I took a lot of pictures. And I started having people ask me for some of the pictures I'd done, like asking for copies of the pictures, because I guess it was because I was so small, because I was just a child. I was kind of able to get really nice pictures of like the little bridesmaids, and like the angles that I was getting of the couple and things were nice. And I think it was also because they had a really bad photographer that like the official pictures weren't great. But I had a few requests, like, I went to somebody's house and I saw they had a picture of the wedding and it was really nice. And they said that you gave it to them. Is it possible to get a copy of this picture? And that kind of motivated me to be like, well, actually, maybe I can sort of see what a good picture is. And I took a few more things. And I did actually get like one paid kind of gig once.
Wow.
But then I don't know what happened. I guess probably it's that I didn't have the money or the desire to like really pursue it and kind of get a really good camera and invest time and energy into doing it. And then, school and life and moving to Italy and things like that happened. And so I just sort of left it behind. And now like I don't think I even own a camera anymore. I mean, the camera on my phone is very good, so I kind of use that, but I know it's not nearly as good as having kind of I'd rather have a device that is like, this is my camera, but I spent money on microphones and a mixer for a podcast. So,
yeah,
it's a very I'm audio. There's a friend of mine and he's got a GoPro and he's like telling me all these things about I'm getting this for it so I can film this and I'm getting that for it. And he's asking me all these questions about it and I'm telling him, hey man, I'm audio only. That's I'm an audio medium, that's all we do. That's why I'm not on. I actually am on YouTube, by the way. If anybody, I'm not exactly sure what the channel is, but this does publish always to YouTube as well. I think I have no views there. It's only audio, but it's there. But what I mean is, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not doing videos because I like to hide. You can listen to my voice, but that's what it is. But yeah, I have had a bit of experience with it, but at the same time, I guess it's kind of one of those things where if you showed me like a selection of photos, I could probably pick out what I liked, but I'm not actively like going to a gallery and saying I like this speaks to me. Like maybe I'm not cultured.
Well, no,
definitely I'm not cultured.
No, that brings me to the next question. No, that brings me to the next question, which is have you been to any exhibitions recently?
No.
Like
I don't think. I'm trying to think when the last time I went anywhere. Again, regular listeners to this podcast will know I'm a very boring dad, so a lot of the time I'm just at home. Not really. I imagine I live in quite a culture-y town, so there's probably exhibitions all around me, but I'm just ignoring them. I'm such a bad person. But yeah, I haven't. Well, I probably couldn't even tell you what the last museum I went to was. It's been a long time. Yeah, no idea, really. Probably a science museum, to be honest with you.
That's nice. No, but it could be a good idea, I suppose, to maybe visit a photography exhibition. I would recommend that. And then you might have a totally different perspective on photography after seeing one. That's one of the other things that I forgot to mention actually before. Is to going to different exhibition actually inspires you a lot, and so it kind of gives you that push to go further and take more and more pictures. So maybe if at the time after your first gig you had maybe gone to some exhibitions, you might have gone on with the photography. Who knows?
Yeah. then we never would have met, because I would have been a famous photographer traveling all around the world, and probably would never have gone to Saint Donat. There's nothing there. I would have been in Milan. If you'd gone up there, you'd have seen me like at Fashion Week or something. But that's. I do actually just remembered the last gallery I went into. Actually, 2 galleries. There's a friend of mine runs a gallery in Bath, so I've been in just to have a chat with them.
There you go.
I've gone in, but that's very much a more paintings kind of art gallery. And then there is a gallery. There's so much a gallery I suppose galleries are shops to a degree, but so I suppose it is just a gallery. It's kind of an art and photography gallery in Bath that always catches my eye because it always has fantastic comic inspired things in the window. So there will be like a giant Spider-Man or something in the window that they've done, which, I know what I like. And it's probably not the same things you like. I had another question for you that I didn't get to ask before, so I'm stealing the questions back for a minute. So you like taking pictures of people, right? Yeah. People out in the street doing different things. Has anybody ever called you out on this? Has anybody?
Oh, yeah.
What's the most interesting experience you've had?
Well, the thing is that once you start taking pictures as a street photographer, what you'll do is you'll start in a very, very, very shy manner. So you will probably be very kind of like trying to hide as much as possible, and you really don't want to bother people. And then slowly you would actually get out of your shell, and you'd become more and more, I'd say, just aggressive in a way. And so at some point you'll be like, okay, I just like this moment, and I really need to capture it, and it doesn't matter really. So I remember seeing this woman sitting she was in a cafe, and luckily she was behind the window. But she had this really amazing blue hat, and I thought it was like a great shot. So what I did is I ran over to that window, and in that exact moment she turned around, she saw me with the camera, and I actually took a really quick shot of her. And by the way, this picture is actually on Flickr because I have my Flickr profile. But I mean, she was actually, you could see in her eye, it was like she was really, really annoyed with me, obviously, like taking pictures like that. But luckily I was protected by the window. So I just took my shot and then I went away.
Yeah. I actually have a great picture that I took in a cafe in Italy, which to me summed up very much Italian culture and why there is the financial crisis hitting Italy so hard at that moment. Because we were in a cafe, and there were 3 tables, 3 men, with just one on each table, no coffee, like maybe an empty cup on 1 or 2 of the tables, and all of them just sitting there reading the newspaper. And I just thought, well, this is why, they're complaining that all these bars are closing down. And you've just got 3 people in here, no one is drinking, they've got a table each, and they're just there to read the paper. That's it. And I just snapped a picture of this and sent it to a friend of mine.
It's
just
like,
that
La
is
Dolce Vita. So
it's very
Italians... that's Italy.
That is, yeah. It makes me laugh because you can't. You get in there and you're like, I better stand up and drink it at the bar because there's nowhere to sit because the old guy's got the paper. I have another. It's not so much a question; it's a reminisce, if you will, because this whole time I've been thinking about one quite famous photo.
Yeah,
and the only reason I'm thinking about this picture is because it appeared in a book that we both used quite a lot.
Okay. The English File?
The English File. So do you remember there was a lesson about a photo that was taken in, I want to say it was in Paris, and it is called like Two Lovers or something like this. It's like this supposedly like romantic picture of this man and woman that are there.
Yeah.
And there's a whole story behind this picture, and you basically find out they just had an argument.
Yeah.
But the picture was taken and was like became a super famous because this couple was so much in love.
Yeah.
But later you find out, well, they did get married, and so well, maybe they were in love. Definitely they were in love. But it's just funny when you hear sort of all the history.
You see, the photographer knew better.
Yeah. So that's all I've been thinking about that again goes back to the birth of this podcast, just the number of interesting little bits of information you picked up because you had to teach somebody how to say a certain thing in English. Yeah, it's been very interesting though. I am intrigued. So you said you've got a Flickr account.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Where can we find that?
Shall we just link it somewhere on your website or my website?
Yeah.
Because my profile is called Ollie with a Y, spells OLYPK. So it's got like a random name,
PK.
but we could maybe put a little link to.
Okay, so if anybody's interested to find that, we'll stick links in the description. There'll be links for what are we going to link them to? So we've got Flickr. Where else can they see your work if they want to admire the risks you've taken to get in the face of these poor people that are just trying to go about their daily life without some...
Mainly Flickr and something on Instagram maybe. So
yeah, that's a mad Russian spy who's just documenting life in Italy. What's the worst picture you've taken then, by the way? We've not asked that. You've told us about the things you're proud of, your wonderful project, but you mentioned before your kind of a horrible picture you've taken. What do you think's the worst picture you've taken?
There is not one, there are like multiple.
What is the gallery of terrible pictures you take? Is it always the same thing though? It's just people going about their life, or is it when you were just looking at the lens to see if the lens cap was off?
When you take pictures, you should really be inspired, and you should go out only for the purpose of taking the pictures. So I remember traveling to Spain, and I was really excited. I was like, I'm going to take a lot of nice pictures, but I was actually on holiday, and turned out that I didn't even take one single shot, and I was like in a totally new place, amazing, south of Spain, fantastic, but all the pictures were absolutely horrible.
Were they all just selfies of you at the pool?
just like, I don't know, completely dull and not interesting.
Yeah, see, I think that's probably what I'd struggle with, is the idea of sort of going, I have to go out to take a picture. I feel like I'm much more, I'd want to have my camera on me at all times, and I'd see something that I'd go, I want to take a picture of that. But I think I'd take very few pictures because having this mentality, I wouldn't be out searching for them. I'd just be sort of if it's interesting and it crosses my path, I'll snap a picture, but if not, they're never going to see it. It's probably why I'm not a photographer. I think we're uncovering the reason right now.
There you go.
So,
have you ever tried to make it an adventure though for yourself? Like, okay, I'll go out and I'll see because you see, when you go out with that kind of perspective, you actually start seeing things. That's what I discovered. When you go out to take pictures, you'll actually see the world in a different perspective, and that's the interesting thing about it. And that's the interesting thing about being a street photographer, is like, you literally see things that you would notice things that you normally wouldn't see.
Yeah, I suppose I'm of two minds on this though, because I see where you're coming from, and you're probably in a purist sense like correct with somebody who really is like, well, I'm going to go, for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever. I'm going to go to this place. I'm going to take my camera. I'm going to take some pictures. I'm going to find something inspiring, and I'm going to save it forever. But my problem is more that now it seems whenever you go somewhere like that, somewhere that should be inspiring or beautiful or incredible, nobody's paying attention because they're just snapping a million pictures. And it's almost like, well, I'll have a look at all of this when I get home. And I quite like the idea that some people put out there of, hey, leave the camera at home, go and enjoy the thing you like. Don't worry about taking a million pictures. Just go there and actually take it in yourself. So I suppose I'm kind of torn between these two things. But once again, I feel it's not the people who are going out for a period just to take pictures. It's the general populace that are just taking pictures of everything. I mean, so know that we lived near Venice, and you know that I lived more or less in Venice for the time and worked right in the center of Venice. And people would they would do like Venice in a day and just snap 1,000 pictures and then get home and be like, oh, we saw that. Well, that was quite beautiful. I didn't realize that was there. And that was nice. I would have liked to maybe gone inside there. And and then you'd have somebody who would, so that you'd have people that could see the whole city in a day, and you'd have people that came for a week or 2 weeks every year and were really exploring it bit by bit and actually going inside these places and finding little areas that were just unique to them. So I guess it's kind of that pull between these two different mindsets or these two different things. I get what you mean. And I do feel it's important that you, with any creative avenue, you do need to kind of say, hey, this is time. There is that like, well, when I'm inspired, I'll do something. It doesn't really work like that. You've got to be a bit more organized, which sounds very very unartistic. But you do need to be like,
but no, it's actually true. And I totally get what you mean when you talk about like, people not enjoying the moment and actually being too preoccupied and taking pictures rather than just enjoying themselves. But when you actually start enjoying taking pictures, you'd actually come back to the same spot where you've been maybe a million times before, just because you actually spotted out something that you want to take pictures of. And you might end up like enjoying that place even more, just because you kind of discovered, oh my God, I've never seen this. But now I'm actually about to take a picture, I'm actually noticing this. You see my point? So you kind of start looking at things in a different way and maybe enjoying them even more.
Yeah, it could be. Now I'm wondering, now that you've said this, if you suffer from the similar curse that afflicts podcasters, which is at times, like, you'll have a really interesting conversation with somebody, you wish you'd recorded it. You're just like, oh, I just had the most incredible conversation with this person that I met in the pub. Oh, I didn't have my Zoom recorder on me. I didn't get any of that. That's lost forever. What a waste of time. You had a great conversation with somebody, you know, that was brilliant. But there's this kind of idea of like, oh, if I don't record it, it didn't happen. So I'm wondering if as a photographer, you're out there, you see this incredible thing and I don't have my camera. Oh, this is the worst thing ever.
It happens. Like, I often say to myself, oh, damn it, this was a perfect picture and I didn't have my camera on me and I didn't take the picture. So yeah, it definitely happens.
Do you tend to keep your camera on you most of the time, or is it a case of, no, I'm going out to take pictures?
No, unfortunately, no.
I'm the same.
What do you do with your gear? I mean,
so I actually mentioned this to someone the other day a few weeks ago. It was on another podcast that came out about my setup. So I've got like my proper studio setup that we're on now, with the mixer and the kind of the big microphones and all of the pop filters and everything, and it all goes through the computer and I can just record and edit and do everything straight away. And then I've got like a portable recorder that I can take that just on its own and get pretty good quality recording. There are a few episodes that I've done with it that you can't really, if you don't know what you're looking for, you might not pick up on the huge difference. It does also have the ability to plug proper microphones into it as well. So if I'm kind of been invited somewhere and I know we're going to record, I could pack a kind of smallish kit that's just got the different mics and stands and the things I need and set it up that way. And if I'm just going out and I didn't realize that I was going to meet someone that would be a great conversation to have on the podcast, I've got the ability to just record straight away from the recorder. That being said, I never take it out with me.
Oh, there you go.
unless I'm taking it deliberately to record. That might change once I suppose if I was going somewhere like an event and I thought, hey, there's a good chance I might bump into someone here. If I had an inkling, then I might take it. But just generally when I'm out, I'm busy. So the idea of being able to sit down for an hour with somebody, it's kind of unrealistic. It's not like a photograph that takes you a few seconds to capture. This takes a lot longer.
But still, I guess that you still have to be in the right mindset, and usually when you work, so it's likewise. I mean, it's the same here.
Well, you see, you say that. The issue I have is the goal of interviewing, as many different people as I can and getting people from all over the world means time zones come into play.
Oh, yeah.
So if, I'm recording an episode with someone from Australia, we've kind of got to work out when is it not the middle of the night for one of us. Or, I did an episode with Phil Better from Canada, and I think it was kind of early afternoon for him, and it was sort of midnight here. So you just hear me sort of getting worse and worse as the conversation progresses. So that's sort of like one of those little things where you might not be in a creative mood, but that's the time that you can talk to this person, so go for it. That's the only time you're going to get it done. But I don't need to be too creative.
Yeah.
I just need to ask a few questions and then save it in the edit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Olga, been lovely catching up. It's been a long time we didn't speak.
Yeah, really.
Feel really bad.
Yeah.
I only call you when I need
I
something.
hope we can do this again. This was really, really nice.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we'll do it again. Just wait for me to get desperate because I've got rid of all my guests and I'm starting to recycle. No, it's not true. I know we've already got a few ideas for potential future episodes, so will be good to get you back on and talk about some of these other things we mentioned off pod. Terrible thing. So before we go, is there anything we want to plug for you? So you've got your easy English that your what we should call that, your teaching trade is what you're doing for a living, and then you've got your photography that's your passion. So we'll link. Do you just want links in the description at this point? Is that going to be the easiest thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to know any more about Olga and her career in teaching English, or any of the links for the things that she's got going on with her teaching, that will be in the description. And if you're intrigued to see some of the photographs from these different projects, maybe this one about adoption that was featured recently, well, once again, links will be in the description, so just look down there and you'll find all of that. With regards to us here at A Conversation With, well, you know that you can find more episodes by visiting our website. We're on iTunes and Spotify and all other places where you find podcasts. You can contact the show at aconversationwithpod@gmail.com. Maybe you've got a topic that you'd like to speak about. Well, we'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACWpod. And again, links will be in the description. We also have our Patreon, which is patreon.com/aconversationwith. And we've got some bonus content up there, some extra videos just for our Patreon supporters. So if you want to support the show and get some bonus content, that's the way to do that. So that's everything from us here, and we look forward to seeing you all next week for another conversation on a different topic. And just leaves us to say thank you once again, Olga, and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.